Hello once again, folks. Here to do another video. Figured that I actually want to tackle something that is a bit, I guess, controversial. Something that's a bit taboo. A lot of folks don't want to talk about it, but you know how I am. I like to talk about things that other folks don't like to talk about. I know it's been a while since I've actually did a video here. It's that, you have to excuse me. I'm a very busy person, with work and everything like that. So, I try to do videos whenever I have a time, to get around to doing them. So, it's not like I have completely, abandoned or did anything of that nature. But, you just have to understand that, when you have other priorities, you have to prioritize things and, put things in perspective and complete things that needs to be completed right then and there. And, of course, other things that can wait, you have to kind of push them back a little bit. So, nothing too out of the way of that. But, that's just pretty much how I, organize and do my stuff. But anyway. We're going to be talking about a video today, part about it is that, it's an interesting topic again, and I've actually did a video about this in the past, but for whatever reason, I don't know what happened to it. Again, I don't know if YouTube took it down or if I may have taken it down. You already know how that goes, but I figured that, I'd go ahead and revisit this subject, which is sex. And when you're talking about sex, that's one of those things that actually causes everybody's ears to perk up, because, let's be real. Everybody is having sex. Sex is so easy to get these days. And for the most part, it's like we give it away without any thought, or any meaning behind it. It's like one of those social recreational activities that, that folks like to engage in, both young and old. Let's be real. But, it's just one of those things that we really have to look deeper into to really see what's going on with this particular act, of mankind. But one thing that I actually want to start off, is that, aside from sex being what it is, we actually studied sex when I was actually in business school. And I know that doesn't sound like two things that actually should go together, but we actually studied it as an elective, or I actually took the class. It was not actually a subject in and of itself. It was actually a part of a chapter of a book that we were reading for business school, for one of my elective classes. It was one of my social classes or whatever the case may be. And we was actually studying the pyramid, the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it was a very interesting, study because it actually taught us a lot about, the things that mankind actually needs in order to survive, sex being one of those things, and of course we had a lot of giggles and everything in the class because, when you talk about sex on the outside, it can be funny, it can be very jovial and stuff like that, depending on the angle that you're attacking it from. But, within this context, we were studying it. You let us know that, mankind has a lot of needs, and basically social needs is also one of those things. And sex actually falls under that category, or under that umbrella, I should say, of social needs. Basically, having to do with, wanting to have a family one day, belonging, love, all of those type of things, and I really enjoyed that class because it taught me a lot about, the mankind and how pretty much what we need on a daily basis in order to survive, for the most part. Now, like I say, when I say survive, I mean, as far as going on, living on. I mean, you can live without sex. I mean, let's be real. But, the urge is going to come around at some sort of time sooner or later. I mean, let's be real. We can't be a prude and think, since we're on the road to trying to live right, that sex is not going to be a part of the equation at some point along the line. Because, again, that's how families are created. That's how babies are created. Let's be real now. Even though we're trying to be followers of Christ, we still can't ignore what we actually see and what we actually have to be engaged in while we're here in the flesh. Let's be real. But, aside from all of that, it being one of those things that we actually need in order to, carry on, we actually have to understand and basically know pretty much what, the purpose of sex, what it was. And the thing about it, again, is that for the most part, we can go back to Adam and Eve and talk about it, and everything like that. For the most part, sex is just basically to further our race, our creation, our being, if you know what I mean. You can't actually further humankind without engaging in some sort of intimate act. And basically that's pretty much what sex is. It's an intimate act between two people, two people of the opposite sex, of course, because again, with technology and everything like this, man is becoming very creative and wanting to create another human being outside of the realms of how the Bible says and how we know nature creates our mankind. Like I say, I'm not going to get too much into that because, again, that can be a subject of a lot of debates and such like that. And as folks know, I'm not the one that debates people when it comes to the Word of God. Basically, my motto with that is that the Bible does not need any help from me, any props from me. It is what it is. It's been along here in existence way before I came along, and I'm not going to debate its truths. You can either accept it or you can reject it. It's up to you. So again, we're going to go ahead and get into the video for the most part, and we're going to talk about, for the most part, what is sex. We already know pretty much, we hear about it, we see about it on TV, and the thing about it is that you cannot shield anyone from it. That's the main thing that we have to understand, is that it's everywhere, and again, folks are beginning to learn about it at a very younger age, if you know what I mean. One thing about it is that you can try to shield folks from life. You have a bunch of parents that try to do all they can, and there's nothing wrong. Again, we want you to raise healthy, morally sound children. But the thing about it is that they actually take it to the point where they try to shield them from everything as far as what life has to offer. And one thing about it is that it's important that the folks who are in the positions of being parents, that they educate and let their young know pretty much everything that's out there in the world. So when this thing comes up to them, because it is, they'll be able to know how to make informed decisions on what needs to be done and how they would want to participate, if at all, in the act itself. You can't shield anyone from life. Let's be real. You can't shield anyone from actually exploration, because guess what? You can try to stop that in your household. But again, you got to understand, you are not with your children 24/7, meaning that they have to go to school. They're going to have peers, peer pressure, and all this other type of stuff comes into play. And again, next thing you know, the subject of, social, wanting to look good for the opposite sex and all this type of stuff. You already know after that, not far from that, then the question and the topic of sex is going to come into play. So it's best that folks actually stop being prudes and actually know that, okay, at some point in time, we're going to have this conversation. And the thing about it, the earlier that we actually can start with the conversation, the better off we're going to be. Because again, you will actually have all of the information, or as much information as you need, because again, life, you're still learning things, but you're going to have enough to spring off of to be able to make informed decisions about sex. But again, going back to it, what is sex? A lot of folks got that question. Okay, what is sex? What is this all about? And of course, when again, when I do videos, I like to consult with and break things down to its simplest form. That's pretty much how I believe folks can learn. Everybody doesn't learn the same way. Everybody doesn't have the same method of retaining knowledge and everything like that. But I believe that when you break things down and make it into simpler terms, it is a lot easier to understand. You understand? So basically what I came up with, and of course, again, after many different ways of trying to put things together, take it apart, put it together again, taking that word out, putting it in again, and trying to make it what makes sense. This is what I came up with. Sex is an intimate act where an exchange takes place. Basically, what we have to understand is that we're talking about an intimate act. And see, one thing about it again is that, intimacy, like I say, it's not really that important to folks these days. Being intimate, because basically, again, it's all about what's out there. It's all about experimentation. But one thing about it is that when you're talking about something that is intimate, that means that it's not supposed to be shared or just given away to anyone, at any time, multiple times, as often as you can. I mean, unless you're married or something like that, that's totally different. But we're talking about folks having sex outside of marriages, having it as often with many partners as they possibly can, all of these type of things that's going on. But they got to understand, the sex is originally is supposed to be an intimate act. There's a lot of things that it's supposed to be intimate or it's supposed to be powerful, pure and everything. But when the enemy gets into it, he taints it and makes it as if it is not important at all. That's his goal. We have to understand what the goal of the enemy is to take what God says is important and maybe just look at it as something being unimportant, that it can be dealt with, how you want to deal with it. And see, one thing about it, that is the common or the lie that is going to really cause a lot of people to bust hell wide open. Everything that is actually from above, and again, sex is, from God, let's be real, you actually have to treat it as something that is intimate and precious. And when you treat something that is intimate and precious, you don't give it away, just like that, just on a whim or just because you're bored or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? It's a very intimate thing here. It's a very intimate act where an exchange takes place. And like I say, a very powerful act. So what we have to understand from this particular point of this video is that sex equals exchange. You're exchanging two things, okay? This is very good. Okay, we're starting to get our juices rolling here as normal. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue this on because there's a lot to learn in this video. All right. So when you're talking about sex being an actual exchange, okay, now we're trying to figure out what type of exchanges are going on. Again, we already know that it's an intimate act between two people. And the way that things going on these days, multiple people get involved in it where they have a menage a trois and all this other type of crazy stuff going on where, multiple people are, having sex. But even in that case, there's still exchanges that are going on. So basically what it is here, we're trying to identify what type of exchange are you talking about? Well, there are two types of exchanges that are going on when, people have intercourse or what we call sex, Basically, we have two exchanges. We have the physical, which involves, the touching, the close contact, the rubbing, and all of this other type of stuff that's going on, that makes the flesh feel good. That lets me know that you are interested in me, at least for the time being. You know what I mean? All of these type of things that makes us feel good, like we're wanted, like someone is actually wanting to pay attention to us, like we are actually feeling loved. You know what I mean? The physical aspect of sex. Then we also have what a lot of folks don't really like to talk about, and we're going to explore in this video, is the spiritual side of sex. Oh yeah, it gets pretty deep. The spiritual side, folks, what's going on in the unseen realms, when two people are exchanging or being intimate with each other. Like I say, all of this, again, is nothing but more than teaching us, how to be more responsible people. I'm learning as I'm going on as well with these videos. Don't think that I am perfect because I know I'm not. I still have a lot of issues and things that I have to take to God, as well as many other folks, I believe, who are listening to this video. So just because I am actually teaching this video, trust me, I still have my faults and my downfalls as well. And like I said, I have to pray to stay in the faith as well. And every day is a fight. Even, we are tempted in so many ways. So we have to have that relationship. We have to have that spiritual connection to keep us intact. Not saying that you're not going to hit and fall down, because again, that's just unrealistic because we're still living in the flesh. But the issue is that we have to, again, maintain contact, read that Bible, attend church services in order to keep that spiritual man intact. Because again, the flesh doesn't mean much because it's going to pass away and decay right away once we, pass on, or whatever the case may be. But the spiritual man is what we need to keep intact. And see, this is the main thing that actually suffers and actually has the most profound effect when you're talking about the act of sex. All right. And that's pretty much what we want to focus on. We want to focus on that spiritual aspect here. And again, like I say, I can't say that with enough oomph. You know what I mean? Because again, there's a lot of things that's going on here, but a lot of folks are not really focused on, the spiritual aspect. They only want the physical. They feel that that's all that they need, which is instant gratification, and stuff like that, and it happens, it is what it is. But let's go ahead and actually, first of all, get into, again, sex from a biblical standpoint, if we will. All right. So what we have to understand, first of all, is that sex in and of itself is not a bad thing. You have some folks that sit up there, they'll teach about everything else. They'll prophesy about everything else. They'll preach about everything else, but they will leave out the subject of sex. Why? It's because basically the enemy has shamed them into thinking that sex is bad. Now, if that was the case, then of course, none of us would be here if that's the case. We serve a holy God. And of course, a holy God would not create something that is bad, right? So I'm just trying to get you all to think, okay? So basically, again, since it was created by God, it has to be good, right? Not only is sex good, it's actually holy. Yeah. I don't know if folks know that, but sex is holy. And the thing about it is that, and the reason why it's holy is because it was created by God, as a gift to mankind. See, what we have to understand is that what is a gift? A gift is something that is actually carefully thought of, carefully prepared with you in mind, and given to you for a specific reason. This is something that is supposed to be, thought of lightly. This is something that is not supposed to be just given away on a whim. This is something that is supposed to be used at a special time for a specific purpose. Oh yeah, it gets very deep, doesn't it? Oh yeah, I can kind of feel the chills coming on just a little bit of chills. That's all, and I can feel that, some folks are really wanting to really know more about what's going on. Just be patient. It's coming. But just know from this standpoint is that when you're talking about a gift, okay, a gift is actually, again, given to us and it's prepared by someone and they want us to enjoy it. Yeah, they want us to enjoy it, but the only way we can enjoy it is that it actually has to be used according to this designed purpose. And again, sex is being given to mankind for the sole purpose of procreation. Well, in order to procreate, there has to be two beings involved, a man and a woman. We're not talking about a man and a man. We're not talking about a woman and a woman. We're not talking about any of that. Even though science and mankind is trying to be so creative and trying to dispute everything that God says is and shall be, mankind and its inventions and its knowledge is trying to go out and trying to do everything they can to disprove what God says is. And you can't work around it. They've been trying all this time, but yet they still cannot get around the fact that sex and life can only come from two things. That's a man being intimate with a woman. I cannot tell you how many news articles and things that I've seen where they have people that are going into what they will call, quote unquote, transition stages, where you have a woman that is actually taking testosterone pills and everything, and she is actually, her body is changing where it's starting to take on the appearance of a man, and she happens to be pregnant. Then they're coming out with this article, oh, the first man in the world is pregnant. I'm like, are you kidding me? And you actually have fools that actually believe that trash. And I'm like, how in the world can a man bring forth life? He doesn't have the equipment. He has part of the things that is needed to bring forth life, which is the sperm, but he does not have the place to house this thing in here, the sperm, where a life can grow. A woman has that. So regardless of how much the woman may look like a man, you are not a man. You are a woman with a child growing inside you. I don't understand why it's so hard for folks to believe that. But some folks have gotten to the point where they've become so gullible, the enemy have caused their eyes to be blinded from the truth. They'll believe anything that's put before them. And they will swear before God and man that, hey, that is true. And I'm here to tell you the devil is a liar. But again, going back to our original point, yeah, sex is holy. And it's, again, to be done the traditional way between a man and a woman. Like I say, we have to understand something. With sex being what it is, it's a very powerful gift. Folks got to understand this. Sex is very powerful. And the thing about it, the reason, and because it's powerful, that's the reason why God only intended it for one particular use, and that's to bring forth life. When you use anything outside of the realms of the Bible as far as how God intended to do, it's going to cause problems. Folks don't understand that. Folks got to understand that. Whenever you use anything that God gives us as a gift for personal gain, personal manipulation, personal whatever the case may be, personal this, personal that, it is going to cause issues. It's going to cause problems with, it's going to cause major issues, and you're not going to be the same. That's why God tells us from the very beginning, I am giving this to you only to be used for a certain reason and at a certain time between two certain people. Okay? To do it otherwise will mean that you're asking for trouble. Issues are going to happen. And I don't understand. You cannot make this stuff up. You cannot go and try to take what God gives us as a gift and turn around and want to use it outside of the boundaries of marriage. Now, when you're talking about sex and marriage and everything like this, the way things are going on these days, let's be real. We're living in a very moral-less society. Sex now has become one of those things that we've given it away so many times that it's become where it's like a drug. It's like it's become addictive. To tell somebody, especially these young folks these days, to wait to have sex until you're married, they will look at you like you're crazy. They will look at you, they will ridicule you, they will tell you that you're old-fashioned, you need to get with the times, get out of my face, mind your own business, this, that, and the other. But see, one thing about it, folks have got to understand, is that when something is strong and it's misused, it can be very powerful, where if you keep doing it long enough, it becomes a habit, and then a habit that turns into an addiction. yes, folks, an addiction, just like a drug. And things about it is that your body begins to crave this thing. It begins to crave it. And the thing about it, the more you give yourself away to someone, outside of marriage. Yeah, we're going there. The more you're going to want that feeling again. You're going to want to feel that sensation of being loved. You want to feel that sensation of being wanted. And the thing about it, there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, because again, we are very sexual beings. God created us that way, where we want to be loved. We want to be appreciated. We want to be all these type of things. But God says, wait a minute. I gave you a gift to express all of that. However, it has to be used within a certain confines. That's the problem. Sex is so open these days, and it's being done with so many people at such younger ages now that we're dealing with a full-blown epidemic. We're dealing with an addiction. And the thing about it again is that, we can't stop it. All we can do is pray. All we can do is pray, like I say, for the folks to make informed decisions. You cannot stop someone from having sex. Let's be real. You cannot stop that, because again, that's impossible. Because again, folks have already made up in their mind, for the most part, and they've already thought it over, whether or not you believe it or not. Even, little Johnny or Susie, little cute Johnny and Susie, little brother and sister, you can believe me, they've thought about it. And guess what? You never know. They might be making preparations to engage in it. Even with some folks or whoever may be listening to this video. Let's be real. We cannot fake the funk with this. And the thing about it is that, again, people are going to, do what they want to do. Again, because we're living in the last days, the book of Laodicea. The Bible tells us this in the book of Revelations. That we're dealing with people who don't even want to acknowledge God at all. They don't want to retain knowledge. So guess what? In some cases, and again in the New Testament, when you've been given the word and you don't want to retain the word, the last step is reprobation. So basically, we're living in a society now with a lot of reprobated people who are addicted to sex. Oh yeah, this video is too much right now. Even though I'm the one that's actually doing the video, I'm learning as well. But this is some heavy stuff. This is heavy. This is having me to reflect on a lot of stuff and choices that I make as well. So, like I say, I always put myself also in the learner's seat, just like the hearers of this video, because I don't put myself above anybody. I'm just a vessel wanting to be used by God. That's all I am. But getting back to this whole thing about, again, reprobation, we're living in a society, again, where folks are reprobated. And the thing about it is that they don't even realize they're being reprobated. But the thing about it is that they're being reprobated because, again, they've actually given themselves over and given themselves out to so many people sexually till it doesn't faze them anymore. They are addicted to sex. Have you ever seen some people that actually wear their sin as if you can physically see what they're doing? I mean, come on. I'm not trying to be funny, but I know I work around a lot of people where oh my goodness, I can't do nothing but laugh with this. Y'all have to excuse me because this is just too much. I have to kind of just take a breath for just a minute. But sometimes, with folks, you can actually see, it's like they wear their sin. It's like you can actually see what they're doing. You don't actually have to physically see them in the act, but you can pretty much know what they're all about. One of the main things that we do as far as, giving away ourselves is, if you will, or letting folks know that there's an issue going on with us is basically by our body language. You have a lot of different people that, express themselves in a lot of different ways, and they show guilt and all this other type of stuff. And one of the main ways that a lot of folks do it in where I am, in the neighborhood and community and workplace where I work at, is they have that all, traditional hoodie. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen folks wear it. And there's nothing wrong with wearing a hoodie in and of itself. It's cold outside sometimes or whatever. But I've seen it where it's like 90-something degrees outside. Summertime. Next thing you know, you're coming into the workplace or whatever the case may be with a hoodie on. And not only a hoodie, but of all things, a black hoodie. It's like you're covering yourself. You don't want anybody to see you because basically you've done something that you don't want other folks to know, and you're ashamed of it. See, one thing about it, again, is that body language actually gives us messages and sends out signals or whatever the case may be, even though you may not say something. Again, your appearance, the way you look, the way you're carrying yourself, it'll actually tell people a whole lot of stuff about you. Like I say, because, again, you've become addicted to something. And basically, even though you acknowledge that you've become addicted to it, you pretty much know that deep down, that is not how you were raised. You were raised to be something better than that. But yet still, it's like you have lost control, and you're being controlled by something. And basically, anytime the opportunity of sex comes around, you're going to engage in it. Whether or not you know it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. You've actually given yourself over to this deceitful spirit, and you're letting this spirit have control. And after the act is done, that's when the hoodie comes on. Because you're saying to the world, I've done something. I'm not going to tell you what I've done, but I've done something and I'm not proud of it. Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. This is too much. But when you're talking about sex, and when you're giving yourself away too often, too many times, and to too many different people, what we got to understand is that it has like a cycle. And the only way I can explain is that sex has an addictive cycle. You know what I mean? It's like you're going into this circle. You're going into the circle where, you're having things, suggestions given into your head. I mean, you can not even be thinking about sex, but yet still, when you look at things or when you see something, next thing you know, it's playing with your emotion. Okay, you're like, okay, I wonder how that would work. I wonder how that would be if I can get a hold of it and stuff like this. Next thing you know, it triggers different emotional reactions and such. And next thing you know, you're having these cravings. And the next thing you know, you're going and doing different things and trying to get into the act of whatever it is that you're looking at. And next thing you know, once the act is done, you're feeling guilty. Next thing you know, you see something again, and here we go again. We're repeating that same behavior. Where now it's like we're going in a circle. And the funny thing about it is that at the end of this cycle, each time, you're the one left with the baggage. See, what folks got to understand is the enemy is not your friend. He may come to you in a friendly manner and suggest things, but you got to understand is that he is not there to help you bear the guilt of what you have done. God is there to let you know, okay, you have to overcome this. Pray, repent, do what you got to do, but you're going to have to overcome this. But the enemy is going to be there, and he doesn't care how this issue leaves you. Whether it leaves you dead, whether it leaves you in jail, whether it leaves you with an STD, the enemy doesn't know. He doesn't really care. All he is concerned with is using your body at the time so you can fulfill your physical needs, as you say. The guilt is there, but the issue is that the enemy say, I don't care. I've gotten what I've done. I've gotten you to do something that you know is wrong. So guess what? I've done my job. I'm going on to somebody else. And next thing you know, you're the one that's having to sit there and be left with the baggage, the emotional baggage, the physical stuff, all of these type of things. And the thing about it again is that the enemy doesn't care how you get rid of it. He's just saying, guess what? I got you. Now you're left with all this. I'm going on to the next person. That's a friend for you, isn't it? That is a very good friend for you. But what we have to understand is that, when sex has an addictive cycle, again, because of a lot of temptations that we face. We're seeing a lot of different things that in the media, through social media, television, our friends out in society, it's so many things that we're bombarded with. That sends those emotional triggers that causes us to act in whorish ways and all of these other type of things. You see something that your eyes like. Next thing you know, you're wanting to say, what? I wonder what it would feel like to be close to that, or how it would feel to get into that. I'm being real because again, we're human. That's how some of us say things, and if we don't say it, we surely think it. But we have to be real about this. Young and old. Again, you can't hide from this. Folks are becoming, more attractive, if you will. They're going to such lengths to make themselves more attractive. They're lifting weights. They are, doing all these type of things, where one person used to be nerdy in high school. Next thing you know, he done got a hold, and started working out and stuff. And next thing you know, he done built a little muscle. Next thing you know, he's starting to look good to the ladies. Same thing with the female. She was an ugly duckling. Next thing you know, she's getting older. Her figure has kind of figured itself out, got the perfect hourglass figure. Now she's starting to attract attention from the men and everything like this. And the thing about it, again, it's like it's a very lustful society now, because basically what our eyes see, we immediately want. And the next thing you know, we know what we want. We want sex. That's all that it is. We become gluttonous. Our eyes have become gluttonous that everything we see that looks halfway decent to us, we want it sexually, as far as a human being is concerned. So, No more the old type of traditional, where you show your interest in someone by courting according to biblical standards. We're wanting to get in, no pun intended, and get out, if you know what I mean. So it is what it is. That's pretty much the society that we live in now. But let's go and let's rewind this back and go back for just a moment, because there's an aspect really that I kept dancing around that I really need to discuss before we end this video. And basically, we need to kind of go back to the educational process here to really understand what we're talking about. You remember when I was actually mentioning in the video where I was talking about, there was some sort of an exchange that was going on, and I want to go a little bit deeper into that, okay? What we have to understand is that anytime you are actually engaging in sexual activity, and let's be real, whether it be traditional man on woman, man on man, woman on woman, anything else in between, however you want to look at it. When there's any type of sexual activity at all going on the humankind from one person to another, again, we're talking about exchanging. And what we have to understand is that what's being exchanged is spirits. What we got to understand is that whenever you are having sex with one person, you got to understand you're not just having sex with just that one person. Okay? Let's think about this. This is critical thinking time, okay? Whenever you are engaged in sexual activity with someone, you don't understand. You are actually really exchanging and taking in a lot of their traits and characteristics that was given to them from someone else. So basically, when you're having sex with one person, you're having sex really with all of the people that they have had sex with. And the reason why I say that is because, again, their spirit, if you will, the things that they actually possess, let's get deeper, have actually been passed down from one person to one person, from one person, and now you're having sex with that person who have had sex with many of them. So now guess what? Those characteristics are now becoming a part of you. Oh yeah. Next thing you know, have you ever seen people who have actually been, quiet, shy, and everything like this? Next thing you know, they've had sex from whomever, wherever, and next thing you know, you see some changes in them. It's like you don't know what happened, and there's a change because they are not the same person like they once were. Number one, the main thing that we can actually see is that, their personality, and their behavior, they're changing. It's like they are more vocal. They are not as shy anymore. They talk a lot. It's like they take on a lot of the characteristics of the person or persons that they've actually been intimate with. And I mean, you can't pinpoint it directly to sex, but that they've been engaged in something that has really turned them out to be whoever they is at that particular moment. I've run across a lot of young people, and of course older people too, but I'm centering this more on the younger folks that, I met up with them, you have to kind of really it's like almost like an act of God to get them to talk. But next thing you see them like months later down the line, or maybe a year or so later, and next thing they're the most outgoing person there is. And the thing about, they're actually more willing to engage into things that they would not normally engage in. So you already know that they've been introduced to something, and they've been injected, if you will, no pun intended, with something that now is like they are not even the same anymore. And the thing about it, again, this is a very serious issue. The repercussions of what sex is and what it can do. It changes you. It changes you, who you are. Your spirit. Again, you're taking on the characteristics, anything and everything that person has in them. While you're exchanging and having sex, it now becomes a part of you. It's like it has gotten inside of you. And then you're wondering why you're acting so strange, why you're actually, I mean, let's take it back to the home. Let's take it back to the home. You have parents now, who are raising children who are very defiant. And let's be real about it. You're talking about 14, 15 years old. Let's be real, folks, because I don't want to play any games right now. Let's be real. Most of them have actually already dabbled in sex. They're not the obedient type of child where they will go to school, come home, do their homework, do their chores and everything else. Every time you tell them something, they have a back word. They're wanting to argue with you. They're wanting to do this, that, and the other. Chances are they've picked up a spirit from someone somewhere, and then having somewhere to do with them being intimate with someone somewhere, unbeknownst to the parent. Every time you tell them to do something, they have a backword. Oh, you take their cell phone away. Oh, it's like you've murdered them. They've become so out of control. And the thing about it, again, I've seen and witnessed changes. You give somebody, who is very humble a cell phone. Visit them a couple months later. Next thing you tell them you take the cell phone away because they're misbehaving or whatever. They haven't done something they were supposed to do. They get downright defiant, want to curse the parent out, even want to do harm to the parent, all because they took away their cell phone. I'm asking myself, why is it such a big deal? It's just a phone. It's not like they're taking it away from them forever. It's just for the moment and the time being because the parent is trying to illustrate something. But yet still, they figure that they've taken away their livelihood. I'm asking myself, what is so important that's on this phone where it's such an issue that you have to be without it for, a little bit of time? Chances are they've gotten friends, peers or whatever the case may be. They've gotten to know a little, somebody of the opposite sex. And next thing you know, maybe, they're wanting to meet up. And let's say that they haven't even done, who's to say that they haven't even done it already? So we actually have to understand something is that sex comes in, and the thing about it again is that and the funny thing about it, even with dogs, let's be real, let's take it to the dog level. A dog is very protective when he's actually in heat, when he's around a female. Any other time they're okay, but the issue is that when that sex come in and they want to actually, when they're in the heat and he can sense the females in heat, you try to go ahead and tell him to come back in the yard if you want to, he's going to try to bite your head off because he's not trying to be about that right about now. He's trying to procreate. He's trying to make puppies or whatever the case may be. I know it may sound funny or whatever, but I'm just trying to give you the illustration of how this thing affects folks' lives. It's the same thing with, again, the young folks. They've had a taste of sex. Next thing you know, they are not the same. They are very disobedient. They will do anything they can. It's like it's become an addiction where they will do anything that they can to get it again. If they can't get it from the same person, they'll plot and scheme and do everything they can to get it from someone else. Here we go again. It's an addiction. They are no longer the same person. They've become lying. They'll do everything they can to be secretive, to keep secrets from their parents, living in their household. And who's to say that they haven't even brought anyone in the household while the parent was out or on vacation? I'm trying to tell you something. Sex is very powerful. That's why God tells us it's only supposed to be used within this certain circumstance. And the reason why God said that, because he already knows how powerful sex is. Sex feels good. It is. It is what it is. But the issue is that it carries with it a lot of things that folks are not prepared to handle. And the consequences that have to be paid after the act is done. That's why he said, I would much rather you wait until you're married. Do it the right way. Between a man and a woman, married. To do it any other way, you risk a lot of issues and problems. Let's go on to the next one. STDs. Here we go again. We already see that. Our community, the black community, is one of the highest communities that right now that exists that actually has a higher number of cases of STDs being diagnosed daily. Yeah. But a lot of people will have all of their theories about, the case be, and this, that, and the other. And like I said, I read new articles and journals and everything like that. I do like to read, and that may possibly pinpoint the cause as to the reason why this is. And the thing about it, again, everybody says this, that, and the other, but nobody wants to go back to the real reason. You're doing things outside of this intended purpose that God created things for. Let's be real. You can sit up there and use all of your medical knowledge, go and get all of these high-priced degrees, overpriced degrees, and then come back and try to diagnose something, and God says you went into debt to get all of this when I already told you, plain and simple, it's free and in the Bible as to the reason why things are the way they are. Pick up a Bible and read. But folks won't do that. They'll rather go all the way around and try to figure out the problem of something by taking this long way around, only to have to come back years later to what was already there, looking them in the face from the very beginning. People can be very crazy sometimes. Our education sometimes can make us look like pure educated fools. Nothing wrong with it, because I have education as well, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, under this context, we can be quite foolish. Pregnancy. You have a lot of them that go out there and want to pay or want to play, but yet still they don't want to pay the consequence. I'm going to be real with you. I guarantee you, and I know, and oh Lord have mercy, and it disheartens me to have to say this, but think of how many abortions have been done. Just think about that. From folks who you would never thought went out there and got pregnant. You would never know that they were pregnant because, of course, they're not going to tell you. And, of course, by law, they are not required to tell their parents that they've had an abortion. But just think about how many aborted babies have been out there through the act of having sex outside of marriage. I mean, and it's heartbreaking. They're going out there, and the thing about it again is that no one will know. Of course, if you tell them, of course they will. But I just look at folks and I'm like, and I'm not trying to judge anybody, don't get me wrong, but it's like you can see a lot of promiscuous young ladies going on out there, carrying on and stuff like that, and you can only imagine. And I know, like I say, I'm not saying that I'm right in my decision making and what I think about all the time, but you sometimes have to just wonder, okay, she's so loose and always want to be in a dude's face. If she can't get the attention from one dude, she's going to someone else. So you have to wonder, okay, at some point in time, I truly believe that she may have gotten pregnant some way. Does she have any children? She doesn't? Really? Wow, that's amazing. I wonder if she really came up pregnant one time or took one of those pills, the morning after pill or whatever the case may be to undo what was done the night before or whatever the case may be. You have to be real. You have to be real. And these are things that God says that really grieves his heart. Because again, these things were not intended for mankind to suffer. But yet still, because of the seduction of the enemy and listening to his suggestions and to the fact that the enemy is able to seduce and try to play down the consequences of sin, folks openly engage into this stuff. And next thing you know, they come up and have to endure these things. Like I say, the enemy is not going to tell you or show you or be there to help you deal with these things. He drops it in your lap and go on to someone else to do the same thing to them. Pregnancy. Yeah. What about guilt? Well, one thing about it is that I know all about that. Of course, I'm sure that a lot of other folks who may be listening to this video may know a lot about it as well. After the act is done, how you come away feeling, that you should not have done that. You were raised better than that. But I thank God that he still is a God of second chances. He's still a God that understands the human condition. I'm not saying that he understands, that we continue to sin. I mean, like I say, it is what it is, but I'm not in that aspect. But what I'm saying is that he is saying that this is not the end. You still have a chance. Get up and make it right. You know what I mean? He gives us that chance to confess our sins, so we can get back on straight street, if you will, with him. To mend that broken line, if you will. One of the other things also, and the last one I want to touch on before I close the video, is depression. And I put that in there because folks got to understand is that when you're actually doing something or actually trying to prove something to someone and you're not really ready to actually do something, but you do it anyway just because, it may hush the other folks up, or it might quiet them down, but yet still you are the one that's actually left broken now. You have a lot of people that give in to peer pressure, and they know that, okay, as you get older, you're going to have friends who are going to try to talk you into doing things that you already know that you're not emotionally prepared for. And sex is one of those things. We still have a lot of children that still want to do the right thing and listen to the parents and be, and obey their parents. But you have a lot also of them that are out there listening to their friends, going out and doing everything they know how just to impress their friends, so they will not look at them as a sissy or this, that, and the other, or prude and everything like that. It's like they're trying to prove their worth to their friends. Sure, you may have gone ahead on and done the act, but the issue is that after everybody's gone and closed up and gone home for the day or whatever the case may be, now you're left with, okay, was this the right thing that I did? Was impressing my friends worth me engaging into this? Was it worth it? No one can answer that question but you. Depression is real. Depression is a spirit. But the issue is it can only come in there once an act is done. And basically in this case, once the act is done, these feelings that you're having here, knowing that you weren't ready to have sex and you went ahead and did it anyway, now it's making you question your self-worth. Okay, what am I going to do now? How am I going to look myself in the mirror? How am I going to face my parents? What am I going to tell folks? I mean, these type of things are things that we have to consider. You know what I mean? On an individual basis. But that's all that I actually wanted to talk about in this video. You know, again, more videos are coming soon. You know, just bear with me as always. You know, like I said, I'm just, getting my juices flowing, and I'm just trying to make videos and fit them in wherever I can. But anyway, folks, be blessed, folks. And like I say, just consider, what this video is all about. What sex is all about. Sex is very powerful, and we have to make sure that we use it in the intended purposes that God said. All right. Be blessed, folks. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.